It's Not Just Shein. Why are all your clothes way worse now?
I'm shopping at Abercrombie for the first time since I was in high school. Mildly triggering because this was like the coolest store back in the day, but I could never afford it because my family was middle class. Now that I'm here, I'm noticing two main
Middle class and you couldn't afford it. Wait a minute.
things. One is that everything is kind of affordable, which was definitely not the case in high school. The other thing that I'm noticing is that everything is just a little bit shittier than you would want it to be. I'm seeing a lot of like loose threads on things and a lot of stuff that's just made out of 100% synthetic fabrics. The clothing just doesn't feel like this nice, firm, high quality that I associated with Abercrombie.
Abercrombie still...
Also, I just want to say one other thing. The men's fashion guy has a great thread on it, but thread, no pun intended. Anyways, don't villainize all synthetic fabrics. There are lots of synthetic fabrics that are still really nice. I think like rayon is an amazing silk alternative, an amazing synthetic silk alternative that actually is really nice, is just as lightweight, is just as cooling of a material, etc. And also the processes for making different types of synthetic fabrics is very different. And the quality of different synthetic fabrics is different. It's kind of, I don't know if there's a great example that I could pick, but maybe tomatoes would be a good example. If you buy a tomato at the store, chances are, even if you buy the organic tomato at the store, it doesn't mean that the tomato is going to be better. Because even the organic tomatoes were probably still sitting in like a fridge or like a freezer for months before you purchased them. But you know what does make tomatoes better? Growing them yourself. Because you get to enjoy them fresh. And they actually have a semblance of flavor beyond water and slime. It's sort of the same thing with regard to synthetic fabrics. Not all synthetic fabrics are bad, and not all synthetic fabrics are made equal. Like some polyester will last you a very long time, and some synthetic polyester fabric will last you no time at all. Like you put it in the dryer once and it somehow is melted. So yeah. Not all. It's just that certain fabrics like cotton tend to just be better. They just usually are better. But it's not a one size fits all type of thing, okay? Bellini, thank you so much for the gift up to Little Sill. Thank you. I hope I didn't miss anyone. All right.
still does sell some high quality clothing.
Actually, I really like this dress and would totally buy it.
And I'm glad they've decided to start using normal lighting in their stores. But seeing so much cheap and low quality stuff there made me wonder, did clothing used to be better when I was a teenager? Not just at Abercrombie, but across the board. So I scoured eBay, Depop, and
How do you find videos to watch on stream? I just scroll YouTube.
Poshmark for clothes from trusted brands of the 90s and 2000s. Then I went to those same stores and bought the 2024 version of each item.
Abercrombie was like legendary for really high quality denim.
To compare the old and new, I got help from Amanda McCarty.
I worked as a buyer in the fashion industry for about 20 years. In the span of my career, I saw how what we sell people changed. The two major changes, I would say, are one, nothing fits properly anymore. It's not you, it's nothing about your body, you're great. And two, the longevity of these clothes, even
Also, not just nothing fits properly anymore, because that's also a problem, but it's that things aren't made to flatter your shape or form anymore. I feel like it used to be the case that if you went to a high quality brand and you bought an expensive product, it was made to make you look good. I mean, my mom used to teach me when I was a youngin', that when you buy clothes, you should never buy clothes that you feel about, and you should never buy clothes that just sit on you. You should buy clothes that make you look better. And unless you feel 100% and you're like, whoa, this makes me look good, you shouldn't buy it because chances are you're not going to want to wear it. Same thing with buying clothes that are uncomfortable, or especially shoes that are uncomfortable. If you buy clothing or shoes that are uncomfortable, you're never going to wear them. You're never going to wear them. They're going to sit in your closet forever. Lady Sarcasm, thank you for the 26 months. Thank you. I want to try and go and find like a dress of mine that is like so amazing. Let me press play. Let me go and grab my dress. One sec.
How you feel when you put them on has degraded so much. It's just not a good deal.
It's not just in my head, it has gotten harder to find quality clothes that last, even at brands you used to like. If you're wondering why, keep watching. I want you to think about how many new pieces of...
One good example, right? This is one of my favorite dresses. I have to get it fixed because I accidentally was a little bit too violent with the lacing and I ripped it like a fucking idiot. That's my bad. But this is a dress that I got thrifting, and the fabric, it's hard to show on stream, but the fabric is this super lightweight, breathable, soft, not itchy at all. And obviously it's not going to pill because of how the fabric is. Texture, I don't know what specifically it's made out of. Maybe there's a tag on it that says what it's made out of. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is actually 100% polyester. So this is what I mean when I say that, like, also do not judge something just because it is polyester. And I've washed this probably 100 times and it still feels brand new and it's silky smooth. But there's one thing that I love about this dress. And the thing that I love about it is that it does something that most dresses just like don't do anymore, which is you can see on the back, and it's not in the front, on the back, right under your boobs, on the back side, there is, what would you call it? A seam to collect your chest to help build like a frame for you. So it cinches here, but it cinches in the back so you can't even see it happening in the front. And the other thing that it does is that it is made to go outward. So even look, you can see that I'm holding the dress. I'm not wearing it at all. I mean, obviously I'm not wearing it. Ugh, I can't put it around my head. This camera angle isn't really helping my case. But it goes outward. They made the dress actively go outward. Because they sewed it to do that. So when you wear it, even if you don't have like a particularly hourglass support, or sorry, a body type, it gives you one. Because it's fitted at your like A-line, but only in the back so you can't see it. And it also flares out exactly where you want it to. And this is also why I tell people, go thrifting. You will find stuff that actually fits you, that's actually made to make you look good, that will actually last you if you thrift. And this shit is like the perfect example. This is one of my favorite dresses. I know it doesn't really look that impressive when I'm holding it like this, but I promise you, it's very gorgeous when I'm wearing it. It's pretty sick when I'm wearing it. But moving on. We press play.
Clothing you bought last year. If you're anything like the average American, it was around 68. In 1980, that number was 12. But wait, it gets crazier. In the 80s, Americans spent about 7% of their annual income on clothes. Today, it's just 3%. We spend half as much, even though we're buying 5 times more. This Abercrombie ad from the 80s helps explain why. The high-quality wool was a huge selling point. They even tell you exactly where it's from. And notice how they say this is part of their fall collection? Because in the 80s and 90s, stores only had new clothes a couple times a year. Usually a spring-summer collection and a fall-winter collection. And designers would start working on each collection up to 9 months in advance, because clothing production takes a lot of work. They had to think of hundreds of unique designs and whittle them down to the dozen or so best ones, send the designs to the factory, go back and forth with them for months to create a prototype, choose the best fabric.
Pro tip, pilling happens when fabric blends contain varying lengths of fabric, staple, and filament. So 100% cotton, 100% polyester will not pill. Ooh, I didn't know that. Liltopher, thank you so much for the tier 1. Thank you. I picked up a goddamn custom fucking made suit for $2 that fits so clean. Hell yes. What the fuck? Dude, that's sick. That is amazing.
Fabric, the right embellishments, and figure out the proportions for different sizes. After all that, they'd place a massive order with the factory and then just pray the design would sell. It was kind of like a game of chance. You'd place 2 huge bets per year, and if your styles flopped, you'd be stuck with a whole bunch of clothes you'd have to sell at a discount or just throw away. That risk is why so much care and thoughtfulness went into making each piece of clothing, and why you could expect quality at every price point, even discount stores like Sears or JCPenney. Just look at the way JCPenney advertised their suits in this ad from the 80s.
2-piece suits that are expertly tailored, classically designed, and have an elegant touch.
They're not selling you on the price or the trendiness, but on the craftsmanship and design. Even one of the cheaper suits on the market was still pretty high quality, which is probably why if you adjust for inflation, this $160 suit would cost $600 today. If you go to JCPenney now, you can easily get a 2-piece suit for under $200. So in the 80s and 90s, people were buying fewer clothes, but they'd be well-made pieces that would be worn for years. And keeping up with all the trends, well, that was something only wealthy people could do.
Pull the latest Briones and charge them to our account.
Yes, ma'am.
What are Briones?
6 months of my car payments plus a car.
Then came a little store called Zara, and everything began to change.
Oh, man.
The New York
very
Times
beginning of
coined the
fast
term
fashion.
fast fashion in this 1989 article about the first US store of Zara. The latest trend is what we're after, a Zara executive told the Times. It takes 15 days between a new idea and getting it into the stores. Remember, that took most stores 9 months. How did Zara do it in 15 days? By streamlining this part of the production process with something called greige goods. Rather than manufacturing overseas, Zara built their own high-tech factories in Spain, all connected to headquarters by an underground monorail. There, robots working around the clock cut and dye fabrics to create unfinished, uncolored pieces that can be turned into any garment. Once
That's really cool system.
design is created, Zara can send those greige goods to their network of small shops in nearby regions, where they're transformed into finished dresses, trousers, and tops. Instead of huge orders, Zara makes a small batch of each style to start with. The retail stores can then send feedback to headquarters about what's selling and what's not, and they can quickly ramp up production on whatever's popular, restocking within days if needed. It massively reduced the risk that came with clothing production. Instead of losing money on clearance sales or throwing away unsold goods, Zara styles often sell out quickly. The designers don't have to predict trends a year in advance. They can just respond to fashion trends as they emerge, though sometimes that gets a little sketchy. For example,
I wanted to go back for half a second to synthetic fabrics versus natural fabrics. And I wanted to pull up this video that we watched a little bit of, this Climate Town video.
Not a guess, because every company that touches this shirt is trackable and verifiable. There's even a QR code in the tag of the shirt that you can scan to see all the companies along the chain who, by the way, are paying their employees a living wage. You want to call the cotton ginner? Okay, they might not pick up. They might be busy. Percent cotton. Dry farm their cotton, which means it doesn't plastic at all, not even in the thread. Also, they dry farm their cotton, which means it doesn't require extra irrigation.
The way we determine if cotton's ready to pick is if that seed will pop. Did you hear that pop?
TS Designs has...
So that was specifically to highlight the fact that not even all cotton can be treated equally. That there are ways to farm things like, for example, cotton, that you get maybe a higher yield in a shorter period of time, but the quality is worse. Sort of like, anyone here ever drink chamomile tea or buy chamomile tea? Not all chamomile tea is treated the same. Okay? Good chamomile tea should have a lot of the flower petals on it because that's what actually makes you go to sleep and gets you sleepy. Bad chamomile tea has basically no flower petals on it and is just the stem. And that's it. That's all you're getting. You're just getting stem. And so not all chamomile tea is treated the same. Some chamomile tea is just stems. Other chamomile tea is actually like a nice flower petal mix, right? That actually has the ingredient that makes you feel sleepy. It's kind of like if you got a baggie of weed, bro, okay, whatever, however many ounces people do. I've never bought street weed. I was always an edibles person. Before legalization in many states, I'm sure there were a lot of sellers that sold stems, and there were a lot of sellers that sold actual weed. Not all street weed is the same. Not all of that would be treated the same. Yeah, I sold stems. I'm from LA. In the same way, just because you find an article of clothing that's like 100% cotton, it doesn't mean that it's good. It can be lower quality cotton. And just because something says it's polyester, it doesn't automatically mean that it's bad. It's probably bad, but it doesn't automatically mean that it's bad. And it's important to know that these sweeping generalizations are not useful for actually finding quality items. Okay, moving on. Let's get back to the video.
Here's a look from the high fashion designer Celine from a collection that debuted on the Vogue runway in 2013. This skirt would have retailed for at least $1,000. And here's a very similar looking skirt selling on Zara's website for just $80. According to the Wayback Machine, Zara had this skirt for sale by August, which would have been just a few weeks after Celine's version landed in boutiques. These runway knockoffs and how quickly Zara could get them into
K-Corp 100% chamomile stems.
stores were wildly popular. By August 2008, Zara's parent company Inditex became the world's largest fashion retailer. This is also when you had the rise of two other fast fashion giants of the new millennium, Forever 21 and H&M, which pioneered a new way to bring the runway to the masses. They'd partner with luxury designers to make exclusive lines for H&M at affordable prices, starting with Karl Lagerfeld in 2004.
Karl, is it true? Of course it's true.
This part of the story, it seems sort of like a win for the 99%. Fast fashion was making it so that anyone could wear runway designs while they were still popular. That was a new thing. Of course, encouraging lots of consumers to buy low-cost clothes that would go out of style quickly would shockingly have some downsides too, but we'll come back to that. Because we can't give the minds behind Zara and H&M all the credit for the rise of fast fashion. We also have to give some credit to Bill Clinton? No, not because of his sick style.
That's the guy who was on Epstein's Island.
In 1994, President Clinton signed NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which made it cheaper to make clothes in Mexico. And a few years later, he normalized trade relations with China. Textile factories started moving out of the US because now clothing retailers had access to the largest pool of cheap labor in human history. Luckily, there was a law from the 70s, the multi-fiber arrangement, which limited how much clothing American and European countries could import from other nations. Unfortunately, the World Trade Organization let it expire in 2005, ushering the heyday of fast fashion. Because now, there was nothing stopping companies from producing everything in the countries with the lowest wages, the fewest labor laws, and the laxest environmental regulations. We've arrived at the fashion landscape that I remember from my teens. In the 2000s, you had 4 distinct buying options ranging in price and quality. High fashion or luxury brands, department...
Also, the worst part is, nowadays, luxury brands aren't even luxury anymore. Because they use the same labor.
Stores, mall brands, and fast fashion. But these days, it kind of feels like the bottom of this pyramid has collapsed and everything's a little cheaper and shittier. J. Crew, Anthropologie, Abercrombie, these didn't used to be considered fast fashion, but now they arguably are. And that's because of two very big things that changed the experience of shopping into the hellscape of today. The first is the 2008 financial crisis. Middle-class consumers no longer had as much money to spend, so they began drifting over to cheaper options.
While all of the other non-fast fashion retailers were struggling, Forever 21 was opening store after store after store. H&M, the same thing. Zara is spreading into other cities. And so the conversation began, how do we compete here? What if we continue to show the same prices on the price tags that we always have? But we know that we're gonna sell most of the units of that style on sale. And we plan for that.
So let's say this dress costs $40 to make, and it retailed for $100 in 2007. In 2010, during the recession, the retailer would keep the price tag at $100, but expect that most pieces will only sell once it goes on sale. So they'll only spend, let's say, $15 to make it, so they'll still make a profit. And how do you make clothes for cheap? Well, by making cheaper clothes. You add synthetic materials like polyester instead of selling pure natural fibers like cotton and wool.
And again, I just want to push back on this again. Like, it's a little bit more complicated than just synthetic fabrics always worse than non-synthetic fabrics. It's a little bit more complicated. Just a teeny weeny bit. The fashion guy on Twitter has a lot of great threads on synthetic fabrics versus natural fabrics.
You skimp on details like pockets, buttons, and zippers, and offer less sizes.
I think more important than all of this is that the quality of the product is just worse. Like, it used to be the case that if you bought a $100 item at a store, it was actually tailored well. It was made to complement the way that you look. It didn't have random things that would fall off, or it didn't have like stitching that was fraying before you even bought it. Whereas now you can go to a store, look at $100 item, and it looks like dog shit. Like, no one's worn it yet and it looks bad. Peak in shitification? Yeah, exactly. Quality control is way worse now? Yeah.
I could see all these things play out in the clothing I bought. Like these men's jeans from Abercrombie from the 2000s versus now. The vintage pair weighs a hefty 761 grams and is 100% cotton.
They feel substantial, long-lasting, really high-quality denim. They have a decent amount
Hey, that's me.
of distressing on here that was probably done by hand to sort of break down areas, make them softer. In the fast fashion era, a lot of this is skipped, where it's just like, let's just spray them with acid or do other things that are like actually like very toxic.
The new pair weighs less at 720 grams and is a cotton elastane blend.
This is that fast fashion trick of, okay, if we add a little bit of stretch, it will fit more people theoretically, and they'll be less likely to return them.
I'm biased. I love when clothing has a little bit of stretch on it. Sorry.
But putting elastane in jeans shortens the lifespan pretty significantly.
I know that it shortens the lifespan. I know that my items will last a shorter period of time. I like it. I think it feels better. And also, it's hard to find clothes that fit me well. And that means that they will fit me well. I went to a Urban Outfitters. I had some time to kill. I was waiting for a phone call and I was like, oh, there's an Urban Outfitters in this plaza. So I went in to walk around, and I like to buy Urban Outfitters like sale items. They have these sweatpants that they sometimes will put on sale that are really comfortable sweatpants. So I was like going over there and I saw the cutest pair of jeans. They were these like white and blue striped jeans. And it was like a lot of thin stripes. They kind of looked, oh man, the camera's not going to like the way that this looks, but they looked a lot like this. The camera really does not like, screens do not like this pattern, Jesus. But anyways, in person, it looked really, really cute. And I try them on and I'm like, oh my God, these are so cute. They're so nice. I cannot wait to get these. I'm trying to get it off the screen and my mouse is not being responsive. Okay, there we go. And I was so excited. And then I'm like looking and it's like a low rise. So you can see like your belly button and like whatever the fuck this area is called underneath your belly button. It looked so nice. And then I turn around and I am not joking when I tell you it flattened my ass into this horrible, like pancake shape. It gave me a large square ass. Like I wish I bought them just to show you guys how terrible they looked on me. I was like really trying to squeeze in there. I was like, come on. Oh, okay, they fit. Nice. And I always have that struggle, like squeezing them up. All right. And I was like, I was so sure. I was like, they're going to look good. Turn around. Like, again, just so you guys can get an image of what it looked like. From the front, it looked perfect. And from the back, it was like, here's like, oh my God, my mouse is lagging. Like this. It looked like this. Can't my mouse? Hello, please. Oh my God. Let me get my other mouse. It's dying in the middle of my strokes. Jesus. Okay, hold up. It was like this. And then from the side, normally when I wear jeans, they look like this. These look like this. And then from the very top, my ass is trying to like escape. It's like, please let me out. Let me out. I need to breathe. They were not made for me. It was like, anyways, yeah. That is all to say, I'm a very biased person, okay? I'm a very biased person, and I love when jeans and like pants in general have a little bit of stretch, okay? Because they just fit me better, okay? They just fit me better. All right.
Significantly. Those elastane fibers that are woven in here, they're plastic and they break. And the more you wash them, the sooner they break. But you get into the cycle where you have to wash the jeans more often to get them to go back to size because they get stretched out.
The other main difference between these jeans, the zippers.
We have a legit, luxurious zipper. Long-lasting, 100% metal. They smoothly go up and down. Like, these are things that you take for granted until you get a bad zipper. The new pair, when you were trying to unzip these, that sound, you can feel like this zipper is going to be a problem soon. This is a difference of maybe 50 cents, but it's a pennies game to get the pricing to work with the targets you're given.
Another area that you can really see how quality degraded is with sweaters. We compared an Anthropologie sweater from today to a vintage sweater made in the 90s.
This sweater is Liz Claiborne, which is like Anthropologie before Anthropologie.
The vintage sweater is 100% wool. The one made today is 100% polyester. The vintage...
Yeah, this is the one hill I will die on. Sweaters made out of polyester suck. That is the one hill that I will die on. I think polyester can work for a lot of different fabrics or like a lot of different fabric alternatives. Like I said, that dress that I have, I've washed it a bunch of times. I've never had any issues. It's unbelievably breathable. It's very cool. It feels like cotton. It feels like a better cotton. And I'm pretty sensitive to like annoying fabrics. I used to have this microfiber bed cover, whatever the fuck they're called. And it was just irritating me so much. I had to switch it for like 100% cotton. I was like, I'm going to splurge and get a nice bed cover because this is really annoying me. Like I'm almost like itchy in the middle of the night. So I'm a little bit particular about fabrics. And there's some polyester that's actually pretty nice. There's some polyester that actually, it's okay. It's fine. Polyester for sweaters, do not ever.
Sweater has metal buttons. The other one has no buttons at all. The vintage sweater is a size medium. The one made today is one size.
When I see one size in something, I'm like, oh, it's because they couldn't afford to buy it in sizes to meet the margin targets.
Even with all these cost-cutting measures, traditional retailers were struggling. And that's around the time private equity firms started buying them up, saddling them with debt, and letting all the business decisions be made by finance bros whose idea of fashion is that Patagonia vest over a gingham shirt. And on top of all that,
Business bros.
there's still that other huge change that I mentioned, the final death knell in quality clothing.
Also, someone linked it. But yeah, this is a great thread from the Twitter fashion guy. Everybody knows the Twitter men's fashion guy. But there's a post that says, start reading labels like you read food labels. And it's like natural fabrics, toxic fabrics. And on the left, it says like leather, silk, wool, cashmere, cotton, bamboo, linen, hemp. And on the right, the toxic fabrics, polyester, viscose, acrylic, nylon, rayon, acetate, polyamide, and spandex. And then the men's fashion guy has a great breakdown of like why this is stupid. And also these aren't toxic. And also the person making this fucking stupid visual diagram doesn't even know what they're talking about. Viscose and rayon are the same thing. And the bamboo picture, the bamboo fabric pictured is also likely rayon. And it's from the fucking Wikipedia rayon page. Like this is just a crystal mommy spreading garbage, basically. But yeah, they're talking about how nearly every high-end suit, sport coat, or pair of tailored trousers is lined with Bemberg, which is a name for cupro, a material made from rayon. Rayon is so great that even the best bespoke tailors in the world use it for lining. That is to say, just because something is synthetic, it doesn't mean that it's automatically evil and bad. That's not how that works. And there's lots of instances where using synthetic fabrics makes sense. It's about when you're using it, where you're using it, and how was that fabric made? Like, what was the quality and the effort put into creating a piece of fabric? Because that makes a huge difference. And yeah, the same also applies here. Natural doesn't automatically mean that it's better. And he talks about how your rayon is a soft, slippery fabric that's often used as a silk substitute. It's more breathable than silk, which is why tailors switched to it about 100 years ago. Why do you want this material for your jackets and pants? For one, they help you slip into your clothes, especially when it comes to things like sleeves. So you ever put on like a blazer that doesn't have the lining on the inside and it gets stuck on your button down? Well, a nice blazer is lined with rayon so that your arm just slides right in, even if you're wearing cotton underneath it. As you remove more of the lining, the back of the jacket can breathe better. It's good for hot summer days, but depending on how the fronts are constructed, you can end up doubling up on the jacket fabric, which may be less breathable than rayon. Thus, rayon has its use. Rayon isn't just for lining. It can also be used with shirts. I like how rayon shirts feel cool and slippery. They're cheaper and they're easier to maintain than their silk counterparts. Let's take another potential use. Cotton doesn't have the natural crimp found in animal hair, so cotton fabrics don't have that spring back quality that's found in wool. It's easy to understand this when you put your hands into a wool jacket's hip pockets. There is spring. I'm sure other people have noticed this as well. Cotton is a very firm fabric. Plant-based fibers, such as linen and cotton, they don't have this quality. So cotton, corduroy, and linen garments can be really stiff. This is why you have to cut them a little bit larger. If these garments are too trim, the seams will be prone to ripping. Even if you cut a cotton suit correctly, it can still be stiff and uncomfortable. If you're used to wearing wool garments, a tiny bit of elastane can give the fabric that same spring back quality. So again, going back to how just because something is 100% cotton, it doesn't mean anything. If anything, there are instances where if you get like a blazer that's 100% cotton, it'll be so stiff and it'll feel like you're walking like with a fucking, what are they called? Straitjacket on. Because the way that different fabrics are made, the qualities of different fabrics, how they come together, it's very different. And also, the quality of fabrics now and the quality of fabrics then is going to be very different. A perfect example of this is wood grain now. This. So because of how much wood production we have and because of industrialization, The wood that we get now at like Home Depot is not the same as what we used to get before we, deforested everything. Gremlo, thank you so much for the 21 months. Here is a really good visual indicator. So here's a tree that was, or like here's a 2x4. I don't know what size of wood this is. From 1918, where you had a lot more rings on a piece of wood. And that's because these trees had been growing for potentially hundreds or thousands of years. Whereas new wood, it has maybe like a fifth of the rings. So it's lower quality. It was grown a lot faster, et cetera, right? They use trees that specifically grow faster, but also this is why I'm such a bamboo simp. Bamboo is just like already, it's a perfect wood. But anyways, and you can find other images of this that are really cool. The difference between high quality wood, high quality hardwood, and like bad wood is this, right? It's the same thing with cotton production. It's the same thing with wool production. The wool that existed maybe 30 years ago is not necessarily the same wool that exists today. So just because something is cotton, it doesn't mean it's good. Just because something is wool, it doesn't mean it's good. And it doesn't mean that it's the right material for that product. And just because something is synthetic, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's like a case-by-case situation. But that's kind of how it is with everything. If you try and oversimplify anything, it's bad. And here's this. You likely already wear synthetic fibers. If your socks were made from pure cotton or wool, they would stretch out or they would droop over a short period of time and feel pretty awful. IMO, it's better to go by the brand and store reputation as well as your experience than be overly reductive about synthetic fibers. A cashmere Shein sweater will be worse than a Zegna cotton elastane suit. It's more about the maker than these reductive charts. It's about the quality and the love and effort put into each individual product, not the material, right? Final example on this topic. You guys see those people that are like, hey, I'm doing a quick little drawing in paint. Let me see if I can find it. Application. Images. I'm seeing if I can find a good example of what I'm talking about for the people who have never seen what I'm talking about. Pretty hard to find, actually. Surely. Microsoft Paint, Windows 11. This is probably a good example. There are better examples, but I just can't find any because it's one of those things that you don't look for, you just stumble upon it and then you're like, dude, fuck these people. But here's maybe an okay-ish example. No, this is like mediocre. This is gonna frustrate me. Wait. Hold, chat. Hold. Yes, I found it. I found it. This is someone using Microsoft Paint. Okay? This is someone creating a piece of artwork in Microsoft Paint. Big deal, I could do that. Big deal, I could do that. Honestly, big deal. I could fucking do that. Does MS Paint even have layers? No. Here's another good example of someone creating art. This is the right is the reference photo and the left, I think the right is a reference photo and the left is what they made. Zig, thank you so much for the tier 1. Thank you. My point is, it's not that there's one tool that automatically, magically will make everything that you make good. I'm sorry, if you gave someone who's never drawn before Photoshop, they're not going to make anything good. That's just, it's not possible. They don't have any practice doing that. But if you gave a very skilled artist a really bad program, they could still make something pretty good. It's the same thing with quality of fabrics. Just because a fabric is bad or good, it doesn't mean anything. It's the person creating the garment that really pulls it together. Okay, going back.
The internet. Social media and fast fashion are a match made in heaven. Social media helps shorten our attention spans, which extends to fashion trends too, which cycle through faster and faster. That makes fast fashion indispensable to influencers who rely on a steady stream of new clothes for their content. This puts pressure on all of us to wear a totally unique, never-before-seen outfit every single day, which is pretty hard.
Lizzie McGuire, you are an outfit repeater.
I guess now it's time to talk about Shein, Zara's more chaotic little sister, the logical conclusion of fast fashion. Shein is a company that focuses on selling as much hyper-trendy, super low-quality clothing they can for mind-blowingly cheap prices. Shein raked in close to $10 billion in 2020. It's currently the biggest clothing retailer in the world, even beating out Amazon in the US. Shein is not just fast fashion, it's instant fashion. Zara can get products from drawing board to store in 15 days, Shein can do it in 3. Zara can release 35,000 new items of clothes per year, Shein will release that many in just a couple weeks. So how do they do it? Rather than functioning as a cohesive clothing manufacturer with its own factories like Zara, Shein is more like Amazon, a huge marketplace selling clothes from thousands of independent Chinese factories. And it treats those factories sort of like Uber treats its drivers. The factories are hooked up to Shein's software that collects real-time feedback about which items are selling well and which aren't.
That's
the software
crazy.
then sends alerts to the factory owners' phones to ramp up or slow down production. It's Zara's small batch production on steroids. And just like other billionaires, Shein finds creative ways to avoid US taxes. See, when you buy something from Shein, your clothes are shipped to you directly from the factory in China. There's no big Amazon-style warehouses in the US full of Shein dresses. And since packages valued at under $800 can enter the US duty-free, Shein merchandise is pretty much always exempt from consumer goods tariffs. That exemption, it's called de minimis, was originally created so you could buy a rug or a lamp while you're on vacation and ship it back to yourself without having to pay tariffs. Not for big clothing retailers. 50 years of fast fashion and ultra fast fashion has completely changed our relationship with clothes. Instead of being something to cherish and care for, they're now just another cheap and disposable plastic consumer good. Thanks to fast fashion, clothing retailer is in a race to the bottom death spiral. Everything is fast fashion now. And the thing is, all this overproduction, it doesn't just affect clothing quality. When private equity and fast fashion companies greedily maximize their profits no matter what the cost, that hurts workers across the entire textile supply chain. Now, mass-producing clothing has always relied on extremely exploitative labor and dangerous working conditions. But as the industry gets bigger, the casualties and abuses do keep growing. Like when a garment factory collapsed in Bangladesh in 2013, killing over 1,000 workers. But the fast fashion companies that produce clothes there hardly faced any accountability. So it's no surprise that nearly 10 years later, a 2021 investigation by Public Eye, a Swiss human rights group, showed that factories that supply Shein are crowded and unsafe, with blocked emergency exits and people regularly working over 75 hours a week. Slavery is still an issue too. According to recent investigations, anywhere between 20 and 30% of clothes being sold in the US contain cotton from Xinjiang, a region in China with cotton farms that rely on forced labor from Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities.
The prices that we are offered on these clothes, that are the prices we're willing to pay, are not based in a reality where everybody involved is paid a living wage and works under good conditions. I mean, they're built off of cutting corners and exploitation.
Now, I want you to once again think of all those new clothes you bought last year. How many of them will you still be wearing next year? The year after? The average American gets rid of 81 pounds of clothes per year, and that's nothing compared to the hundreds of billions of pounds of unsold clothing and returns that manufacturers and retailers throw away. No one actually knows how much exactly it is, but we do know that you can see the world's textile waste from space. This mountain of discarded clothes in Chile's Atacama Desert grows by 39,000 tons per year. The polyester that's in almost all clothing these days will take centuries to decompose. None of this bad PR is slowing down textile production at all. Shein is on the verge of an IPO on the London Stock Exchange with a $64 billion valuation. That kind of stuff makes the fast fashion industry seem unstoppable, but there are people fighting back. First, there's that de minimis tax exemption we talked about that allowed Shein to evade tariffs. A bipartisan group of lawmakers are trying to close that loophole. Meanwhile,
are there any sources to support the slave labor claims? I mean, yes, there are. There are plenty of instances of people going to these factories and recording this stuff. But more importantly, it's intuitive. Capitalism suggests you create the most profits possible for your shareholders. There are no labor protections for workers in a lot of Asian countries that we currently exploit. We also know that the minimum wage in these countries is pathetic. We also have seen the factory conditions. When your product says it was made in China, this is just basic, like 1 + 1 = 2. Like the basic logic of capitalism tells you you need to make as much profit as possible. When your products say made in China, which every product says made in China, it's being made in an exploitative fashion. It's very simple. But if you wanted to see video evidence, there's lots of video evidence online. The reality is that it's just intuitive.
New York lawmakers have introduced legislation to create, for the first time, legally binding environmental and labor standards for the industry. And dozens of brands have been investigated for using cotton from Xinjiang, including H&M, Nike, Uniqlo, Burberry, and Shein. But there's still a lot to be done, and the industry is going to fight every step of the way. Remember when I said Shein's IPO is in London? The reason they're not doing it in New York is because they didn't want to comply with US regulations that would force them to make disclosures about forced labor in their supply chain. They haven't given up though. They're lawyering up and lobbying against those regulations. Fast fashion is the story of unchecked corporate greed in a bargain for lower prices for, well, you. Though, as we've shown, that hasn't actually worked out for consumers. We need lawmakers to continue cracking down on corporations like Shein, because we all deserve clothes that look and feel good, but don't require exploiting workers and destroying the planet just to be affordable. Thanks for watching The Classroom. We're always
Wow. Industrialization has failed us. Lack of worker protections has failed us. That is what's actually failed us, dude.